The evidence supports the view that we have lost a whole civilization from our historical record. We are a species with amnesia.
So we're going to have to forgive universally and move to this creative moment as a species.
We, humans, are creating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous and idealistic.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Video Shaman podcast. I am here with the incredible, the great and powerful Kortney Olson.
Yeah, no, that's right.
How's it going, Kortney?
It's great. With that intro, how could anything be wrong?
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a really interesting. It's an interesting setup. You know, I tried to make it a little professional. I mean, I got the whole.
A little beats the balls off of mine.
Yeah. Here, maybe sit a little bit closer to it if you can. Yeah. Here, let's try to tilt it up like that a little bit. Okay. Well, shit. It's been an interesting couple of days we've had here so far. We're in Las Vegas, your current homeland.
Yes.
Right. And we are, I guess they say, what do they say? The winds of change are upon us, aren't they?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if like all this COVID shit's going to pop off before I'm supposed to leave back to Australia.
Yeah, right. There's all that new rumor and speculation that the lockdowns are going to happen again.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think that, I mean, forget the world for a second, America, do you think in the United States, people are going to go for it?
That's a really good question. I feel like I don't know why I just want to say 50-50. I feel like people have really opened their eyes and have pulled their head out of their ass in regards to what we've been told and the narrative and the amount of fear that was pumped into us. And, you know, thanks to Joe Rogan and some of his podcasts, and I forget the doctor's name.
Peter McCullough.
Yep.
Yeah, him and Robert Malone and
Yep.
all those, the so-called disinformation dozen.
Exactly. Listening to that. In fact, that's the only Joe Rogan podcast I've saved to my phone or ever listened to the whole thing because I'm ADD as fuck. And assume we can cuss on your podcast.
Yeah, fuck yeah, we can. wait, no, I don't know. What the I don't
Your shit is so cool, dog.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, but that podcast being ADD like 2.5 hours, you know what I mean? Like 45 minutes, I tap out. So, but I listen to that, and of course, I'm in perimenopause. Menopause, as you would know.
What's the difference?
Perimenopause is, oh God, we're getting super ADD here. Hold on to the previous thought. We're going to need to reroute.
Hold on to that.
Okay. So
Holding.
Hold, please.
Pause. Menopause. Okay.
Menopause is when you officially stop having your period. And they say that is from the point of 1 year and onward. Even though there are some women who don't have a period for a year and then it comes back, but it's rare. So generally, if it's been a year and your period is fucked off, then you're in menopause. And there is speculation that it is hereditary in terms of the patterns. In my mom's last period, she was 42. I'll be 42 in November. I haven't really had a period in a year. So there's that. And perimenopause is the precursor to menopause. Some women, it can last for a year, and they say some it can last for 10 years. And it's a fluctuation of when your hormones are really dropping and sometimes rising, and you get the whole like night sweats and hot flashes. And for me, it's really just been insomnia, as you'd know. Like, you were here a year ago, and I like was losing my mind. Literally losing my mind.
Yeah, well, especially, I mean, not being able to sleep at all. I mean, I don't drive anybody crazy.
Well, I get like 3.5 hours, and I need like 7 to function. And that HALT acronym, which we talk about a lot in sobriety, you know, the hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like, those are your 4 basic
hungry,
pillars.
Angry,
lonely, tired. Yeah. HALT. If you halt, check your shit. You're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Those are like the 4 main. I just like the word triggers now because it's been super overused, but
yeah,
you know, one of the 4 jump offs. And for me, it's tiredness. Being an ex-tweaker, like, I don't do well being tired.
No shit.
Yeah. No shit. No shit.
Yeah.
So
And you've been through a whole battery of tests, and you've been having these symptoms for quite a while. So I can only imagine how frustrating that's got to be, not only having those symptoms, but not really having the conclusive, like...
Yep, 100%. And,
yeah,
you know, you get your labs done and everything looks to be within range. But, you know, when they say women's hormones, it's like trying to take a sip out of a fire hydrant. That's how much it fluctuates. Like, it's just going to blast you in the face.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, well, who knows? I'm in that point of acceptance. And because previously it was like just trying to figure it out. And it's like, well, fuck it. You know, it is what it is. And at some point, maybe we'll dump some money into research and get some kind of gizmo for women that, like, you know, like the glucose monitor that you stick in the back of your arm and it stays there for a week, and you can just take your phone and scan it and it'll read your levels at any point during the day. So you know your estrogen and your progesterone and your testosterone is, because it's usually has to do, I think, with estrogen for a lot of women and progesterone. So
with menopause and perimenopause.
Yeah,
for sure.
Fluctuation. And going back to, which I'm shocked that I'm recalling this right now, but going back to Dr. McCullough's, it's McCullough, right?
Mercola?
Not Mercola. Oh my God. McCullough. Mercola is another one on the list.
He is,
though.
right.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
Maybe they're
shout out to him.
They don't like the Irish people.
Some shit. Are they both Irish?
Yeah. Joe Rogan. Rogan's an Irish name.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah. But he was talking about how, like, you know, ivermectin manufacturing plants, but
yeah, the factories, they were all burnt down in very suspicious circumstances. Fucked up.
Hell fucked
you
up.
could just look at all that. There's so much. There's what they call an orgy of evidence. It's so overwhelming, the evidence that supports this so-called alternative point of view, that it's just incredible to me, and I'm sure to you as well, and a lot of our listeners, that it's just how people can ignore it. All the evidence in the so-called age where we have to be
following the science. Follow the science! Quick, before it gets away, quick!
It's running away!
You know, follow the science. It's like, no one's fucking following the science.
No.
Peter McCullough, just to say too, he is literally the most published cardiologist, published medical professional in the world.
Right.
In the world!
Oh my God, you're so extra. I love it.
But yeah, you know, another thing too, I'm curious as well. I mean, of course, I'm rooting for you in number one, getting sleep, having some sort of clarity and satisfaction and discovering the root, like the reason why all this is going on. Because I know that obviously menopause, perimenopause, everything seems to be leading in that direction. But tell me a little bit about your stress levels. Of course, it's stress. Like, stress is definitely a result. If one of them says like, I'm unhappy because I eat, and I eat because I'm unhappy, it's like, which is causing which? But in general, with your life, forget that for a second. How is your stress levels with like any given day-to-day thing?
You're a great host, by the way.
Aw, thank you.
Super adorable. Great question. So I was thinking about this earlier today, funnily enough, and I'm like, I wonder if there is some, you know, underlying issues around that. I don't even know what psychosomatic means, but
psychosomatic essentially is, I remember learning in high school, it's like essentially the mind can create any sort of biological condition. Just right. You think of it, it'll happen, kind of like a placebo, nocebo.
Yeah. So psychosomatic would fit perfectly here.
Yeah.
That's another symptom of perimenopause, is dementia-like issues, like actions, like leaving your keys in the refrigerator and parking on the wrong floor and thinking someone stole your car, shit like that.
Shit, I mean, that happens to me, and I know a lot of my friends.
That's a dude thing. Where are my keys?
I know. I know a certain someone that loses his keys every fucking 5 minutes.
Right. You've been really good on this trip, though. But yeah,
but the stress levels,
levels are definitely high. Because I was thinking back to because I've been a natural athlete up until 2015, and my last show, bodybuilding, actually it was physique, I decided to do a cycle. And you know, the coach that I was working with, it wasn't, I didn't do testosterone, so it was primobolan, which is a form of an androgen, but it wasn't a lot because I've always been concerned about losing my femininity. And there was a point, I want to say, I don't know if it was like 2014 or it was 2015. I mean, I took like a shot of testosterone for libido purposes. It wasn't like bodybuilding. I just wanted to to have sex again.
Right.
You know?
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, every human being has got some sort of balance of the two. It's not just like the polarity of one versus the other. So, okay. So,
yeah. So, and since 2010, the first time I actually had blood work done with a naturopath, like I had really low testosterone levels. And so at any rate, growing up in, I don't want to say growing up, but in my early 20s and being around the bodybuilding world, you know, and you see women and you're like, damn, like mad respect because it takes so much work to get to that level. But I, you know, being an addict, I was like, there's just going to come a point where I'm afraid that I'm going to cross over because there's no going back. You know, it's not like the shit wears off. Like once you morph and your, you know, jawline grows and a lot of that comes from growth hormone as well. But,
right. Like steroids, right?
Yeah. So growth hormone is another category, but it causes your facial bones to grow and, you know, and then of course with tests, your voice drops. And so I didn't do a lot, but it was still, so this was 2015 and then it was 2017. So we launched Girl at the end of 2015 as well. And then 2016 was so-so. And then in 2017, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease. And that there was a huge amount of stress. And stress, you know, like a massive stressful event can trigger it. And
can trigger Graves' disease?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know
like
that.
if you've already got the doorway to, I don't know if it's a gene. I can't fucking remember.
Probably
I can't remember shit.
If it's genes or like some sort of like environmental
factors. They talk about drug addiction can also be a precursor to it. And of course, Graves' disease is when your thyroid speeds up. Whereas most women, because it's like 85% of women experience a thyroid condition or an autoimmune disease. And most women will experience the opposite, which is Hashimoto's or hypothyroid, when your thyroid slows down.
What's Hashimoto's?
Hashimoto's is the autoimmune functionality of the thyroid, where your body is attacking itself as opposed to just, you know, the thyroid not functioning properly.
Sure.
So, yeah. And then Graves' disease, you know, you see people with their eyes bulging, like their eyelids are on both top and bottom, like their eyes, there's so much pressure. It's like pushing out of their face. Yeah. So I was like, I have a cousin that has Graves' disease and you know, his eyes have always been bulging like that. And so I was like, oh, fuck, is that going to happen to me? But it took about 2 months for the medication to start working because it was like, I was shaking like this. I couldn't lift more than 5-pound dumbbells. I lost like 20 pounds. Your hair thins dramatically.
And was this before you were diagnosed?
It started happening, yeah. So I actually self-diagnosed, believe it or not. Okay. I was like, I feel like I have some kind of thyroid condition because, of course, I'm on Google and shit.
Right.
And sure enough, I went to my chiropractor in Singapore. He was like, yeah, it would look like that. And it was primarily the shaking. Like, it was like this. It was horrible. And this was literally like the weekend before we were leaving to come to Vegas for our first live event. And we were supposed to have Holly home and she had a fight camp come up. And so then we ended up like getting Chris Cyborg on board. And that was like a ton of money. And it was such a clusterfuck. We ended up renting or buying out rather this place called the Artisan, like the whole hotel. And they had advertised it as $7,500. And whilst we were in the air from Singapore to LA, they sent over a contract and it went up to $35,000.
Wow.
And as a small company, like we didn't have a pot to piss in at this point. It was like our second year of business. We had no fucking business having a live event, really. We were just so overambitious, and hindsight is so ridiculous. But it went from $7,500 to $35,000. And they were like, oh yeah, well, this is the food and beverage. And like, that never got brought up. So as soon as we landed, we got a lawyer and they were like, oh, you can cancel. And we're like, we have fucking people showing up in 2 days. You know, it's just like a shit like that. Like, so the stress level was just through the roof. And so it was that whole thing leading up to that. And of course, you know, not knowing what we were doing in our industry and just the whole scene of running a clothing business with no money, because it is one of the most difficult industries to grow.
Clothing companies, for sure.
Clothing
Companies.
So funny.
I didn't mean to say it like that.
Yeah, you did.
I did not.
You're just naturally fucking cute.
Clothing companies. But yeah, okay, so clearly, yeah, where is it? Here, I think.
Yeah.
Clothing. Clothing company. Oh, yeah, you're one of those, aren't you?
You got to dump a lot of money into it.
Uh-huh.
You know, and then your inventory takes, because we're all custom made, because we don't use sizes. So it's like a 90 to 120 day turnaround. And then your cash flow is sitting up in fucking thin air.
Shit.
And if you don't turn shit over fast enough and it's sitting on a shelf, you know, it's a nightmare. So anyway, the stress from that, kicking off Graves' disease, it took about a year to get back into some kind of normal state.
And may I just ask too, like before this, what was your sleep?
Yeah, never had an issue.
Never had an issue with sleep. So it's just
Fucking
kind of
never.
Chronologically, all of this stuff starts to kind of happen. Yeah. Okay.
So this was May 2017. And then in March 2018, so 6 months later, I was at Crunch Fitness in San Mateo. And like I told you, I barely remember what I was doing 5 minutes ago, but I remember this clear as day. I was like at a cable machine or something. And all of a sudden it was like a Mack truck just drove through my fucking guts. And I was like bent over. I'm like rubbing on my ovaries, like pushing on them. It totally looks like I was rubbing one out. It's hysterical. I was like, like hunched over, like thought I was going to die, because I never had an issue with my period. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And so that was the very first time in my life, really, that I experienced cramps. And from that point moving forward, my sleep has never been the same. And so it's really hard to, you know, differentiate between, was it Graves' disease or is it perimenopause? So from that point moving forward, I've had like horrendous cramping and, you know, it gets somewhat, I'd get relatively moody. Whereas previously I never did. You know, I might get depressed a few days before my period, like sad and lethargic and, you know, but by nature, I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person. And so I'd get mood swings. I would like want to cut people's faces. I'm like, this is weird. Does that work out? You know, I'm very in tune with my mental health and being in recovery and going to fucking 12-step meetings. Like, it's such good medicine, you know, and you always feel great and you've got a network of people like your sponsor and you know what I mean? So it was a very interesting experience and nobody has ever been able to help. And it's just progressively gotten worse. So 2019 was when I really started to notice, like I'd go 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks without sleeping. Oh, again, 3.5 hours. And then in 2020, my thyroid shit the bed again. We were in hotel quarantine in Australia and my thyroid crapped out and they had took me to the fucking emergency room in an ambulance. I'm like, oh my God, this is a bit dramatic, you guys. And then stuck me in with a bunch of like you know, sectioned off area of the emergency room with COVID patients. And I'm like, that's really fucking smart.
Really?
I came from you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Like bass backwards. And so anyway, and then I didn't sleep for like 2 months. And then fast forward, it happened again. And so that was 2021. That next January and February was in Australia again. Maybe it has something to do with Australia. Or going to Australia. And then again, 2 months. And I'd wake up at either 1 or 3 a.m. on the dot. And I'd wake up and I'd have like an 80s song playing in my head. It was so fucking weird. And I was slightly hallucinating way more frequently than I am now. And then it happened again last year when you were here. It was literally 2 months. And it was almost the exact same time as it happened now, which is so strange.
2 years
so
later,
strange.
or a year later.
Yeah. And so now it was August 3rd was my last night of sleep. And then since then I've slept one full night when I was in Washington, DC. And then, oh man, I felt so good the day after. And ever since then it's been 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And then it'll go away. Like last year it went away. It was probably like October 3rd. So I'm probably in for another no, I'm not. I'm going to sleep tonight like a baby.
Yeah.
That was a cat, not a baby.
Yeah. Well, it could be a baby cat. Could be sleep like a kitten. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, so clearly there's a lot of stress going on.
Yes.
And, I think one of the things that when you were talking reminded me that there are, let me see how I can say this without getting too cosmic and weird, but like there's like a time release effect of certain things in our lives where whether it's personal stuff or stuff happening in our environment, I'm thinking about like, okay, you went to Australia and then there was like lockdowns and COVID and you were having all this stuff happening with your personal, like your biology, but then also you were having, stuff going on with your business. And it's like all of this stuff, just, it's almost like, it gets, there's no time for it. Like, and it's like, it's like, you don't have time to be dealing with any of this. So you have a really strong will. And a lot of people do, to be able to just feel like, nope, I don't have time for this bullshit. I'm going to keep pushing through.
Well, it shits me, right? So all through my 20s and late teens, like I hate the word suffered. I experienced, rather. I'm not a victim of my circumstances, but I experienced severe body image issues, body dysmorphia. Like I would eat a cookie and literally see myself get fatter. And it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but when you are obsessed with that, right? Because I wasn't working a program of recovery. That was like my addiction, even though I still had other addictions. But on a surface level, it was the body image. And I would eat something like even up until really my early 30s, like Dave had taken me, that's my husband, for anybody that's listening, it had taken me to Italy. This was back when he had like a baller corporate job and, whatever. And we had like our own fucking suite and it had a gym inside of it in Italy. And I think the entire time we were there, we went to like the south of France and all these different places. And I literally he can speak some French and he'd be like trying to say, do you have egg whites without any oil? He's like, I don't know. That's not my vocabulary. I think I ate one piece of pizza and I spent like 20 minutes dabbing the oil off of it. And after I ate it, it was like, of course, I went to the Vatican or something. I don't remember shit from there because all I am is in my, I know.
Fuck
right?
the Vatican.
Fuck the Vatican.
But all jokes aside.
Yeah. I was so obsessed on, how I was going to work that off, how I was going to work that piece of pizza off and what I was going to do. And just sitting there in my head, thinking about what's in that gym back at the hotel. I can do 20 minutes on that bike. I can do, fucking 50 walking lunges
to work off that, whatever you had.
Yep. And it was like that over and over and over again. And even when I started doing, there was a time in a period in 2014, I think it was, I was doing CrossFit, Bikram yoga, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all in the same day, 5 days a week. And I would walk around the house, like feeling my abs to make sure that they were still there. And, for a cheat, I'd have like frozen yogurt. And then I would put too many shaved almonds on it. And I would sit there and be like, fuck. I just fucked up. I fucking, goddamn it. And
holy shit. That's intense.
It's sick.
Yeah.
It's actually sick. Yeah. And it's a disordered eating is just as severe. I mean, I was anorexic and then bulimic when I was towards the end of my sophomore and then junior year of high school. And then of course got into meth my senior year because I was way more effective. Anybody listening, don't do meth.
Yeah, really. Not good.
Not good. We could tell you
if you're on
meth
right now, just don't
cool your jets.
Yeah, just slow your roll.
Slow your roll. God, you're fucking funny.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. That is so fucking cool.
That's what meth's kind of like,
Kind of, with a paintbrush and a shop vac involved. I was a very productive tweaker, I might add. But that being said, it was just a horrible time. So to go through, all my 20s being an addict and an alcoholic and all of the fucking suffering from that.
Yeah, it's okay to say suffering. It's part of life. It's okay.
It is.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Go through that and then back to early 30s to, being, it still had like severe body image issues, even though I was like kind of I was finding my purpose and stuff at that point. But then you get to fucking 35 36 rather. And then you start having these massive hormonal changes because it's like you finally get past the addiction and alcoholism. You get past the body image issues because it was 2019 where I had, you know, in 12-step recovery, we say sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, you know, that you recover. And I had just eaten something from the Cheesecake Factory, and it's kind of a long story, but I was talking to my grandmother on the phone, and my grandmother's that one person in my life I always felt like I disappointed, right? Because I didn't go to Stanford like I was supposed to. I didn't become a doctor.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't the first female president of the United States. And
let down.
Yeah.
I'm bummed
fucking
about that.
loser.
Still time. Maybe
I
there
know.
could be still time. I'd fucking vote for
Right.
you.
You know, there's something there. I joked with Tulsi about that. I'm like, I'll be your running man. And when I started my clothing line, I remember her I was trying to show her screenshots because the clothing line is all about the mission, right? Not about the clothes. I could be fucked. Like, I hate clothing. I didn't wear a t-shirt till the 5th grade, you know? It's not many tits. And I kept trying to show her like how the vision and the mission had impacted some of our customers who we call the Girl Army. And I'm like, look, read this. And she's like, look at my phone and whatever. She's 93 now, right? So at the time, you know, she's like 87, whatever. And she's like, you need to be focused on the product. Stop talking so much about the community and about this. And I'm like, fuck, all right. So again, I'm a failure. And it was just us struggling, right? As I was talking about in 2017, that was when we had that conversation. And all through 2018, like just a fucking grind, a struggle, like some catastrophic shit happening every other day. Like, oh, all your shit showed up and now you got to pull $9,000 out of your ass to get it out of customs. And
Damn.
They wrote the wrong fucking harmony code down or whatever, shit like that on a daily basis, right? And so in 2019, I asked our community, I said, hey, if Gorillas had an impact on you and, you know, you have something you could say, will you please write a birthday card for my grandma? And so there was about, I don't know, 25 women or so that wrote a thank you letter and like a happy birthday card, a thank you note rather, and sent it to me. And then I sent them on to her house. And when I called her, and it makes me tear up, like telling the story, because had such a huge impact on me, because I felt like for once in my life that I didn't fucking disappoint her, because it was on her medium, right? Because she does crossword puzzles and reads the newspaper and she reads books. Like she reads fucking a book every other day. Super sophisticated, classy, intelligent, right? Like she's the opposite of my mom and I. And so she was able to take that information in because it was on a card. And these women are like, hey, thank you so much. Because my grandmother, you know, gave me 10 grand when I launched the company in 2015. So it hit her. And so she was telling me this over the phone about how impactful it was and what a great job I did and, you know, making all this change. And I just happened to look over in the mirror at the same time. And I just got back from New York. It was a period where I didn't sleep prior to, and I'd eaten like fettuccine Alfredo or something. Normally I'd never eat shit like that ever. But for some reason I was having like a fit type of situation. Right. And I ate that, called her, talking to her. I look over in the mirror because my bugbear on my body are my knees. I hate my fucking kneecaps. Because as a bodybuilder, I don't have the teardrop muscle, which is called the vastus medialis, your VMO, which is on the inside above of your knee, which looks like the teardrop.
You don't have it? Like,
yeah, I've never been able to develop it. And
Oh.
I think it's because of the way I stand. I stand with my weight on the outside of my feet because I kicked the wall barefoot drunk when I was in college because I got caught cheating on a boyfriend with a guy I left him for. Whoops. And ended up fucking annihilating my foot. Like, that's why I have that gnarly ass bunion on there. And I never did anything about it except for just walk on the outsides of my feet. So to focus on that muscle, you really are pushing on the inside of your foot. So it's just always been underdeveloped. And I looked in the mirror and I was like correlating the fact that I was almost about to go down the whole path of like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have eaten that and stupid shit, you know, whatever. And I just looked and she's telling me these words and I was like, nothing came up for me. Right. So you build a lot of self-awareness in 12-step recovery. You're doing so much fucking inventory and writing and reflecting on a nightly basis. You know, like when you do step 10, it's like, okay, where was I in God's will? Where was I in my own self-will? God, whoever the fuck that might be.
Which is a question I want to ask you at some point.
Yeah, noted. Holding. And I looked and it didn't trigger. There's that word again.
It's
It
okay.
didn't
Triggers. There are triggers on guns. People get triggered.
Yeah.
Fuck the haters, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude. Ah.
As you were saying.
Yeah, as you were. So it was at that point that I was like, oh shit, this is interesting. And from that moment moving forward, it was just this gradual, like, fuck it. And, and it could have to do with age and what else I don't know. But I don't know. I finally just got to a point where I stopped giving a fuck. And yeah, what was the fucking point of that whole story?
Oh, just kind of going on the
body image. Yeah, to get to
stress, building and kind of elaborating on the.
Well, to go through addiction and alcoholism and then body image issues. And literally at the same time I'm getting over the body image issues, the hormonal issues start. And so here it is yet again, another fucking set of circumstances. But these are unlike the body image stuff and the alcohol and addiction, right? Because you're given tools for that. You're like, here's 12-step recovery.
And a lot of those are psychological or like behaviorally induced, right? This is more.
This is like completely
physiological,
out of my control.
Yeah, right.
The amount of money I've spent on doctors and supplements and did hormone replacement therapy and fucking like nothing has worked. So.
Well, I'm Jesus Christ. It's a lot. It's a lot, and I feel for you, and I know that. I know that you have the capacity to heal and work through this, because I know as much as you've been through the whole medical gamut of testing and doctors and payments and medicine and blah, 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 you also have a very innate spiritual perspective on life.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't, and this is like, I know from myself and a lot of people too, it's not always there. It develops over time, but you start to gain a different perspective on life. You're one of the most humanitarians that I know personally, who has the ability to be there for people that not only want to be helped, but maybe people that need help and don't know they need help. And you're there to provide that window or door for them, like opening that hand for them. You go down into these tunnels, which I had no idea existed in Las Vegas. For any of our friends that are listening right now, I've never been to Vegas. I just found out there's literally a fucking underground city of tunnels with all these homeless people and people that are dealing with all sorts of mental issues and drug issues and people that just don't want to be part of the matrix anymore. Like, you go down in there and help people. Of course, you've explained it's part of your own, you have your own personal reasons for doing that. But then again, even anytime I've seen you just in the casual encounters with people, you have this great ability of just being like real with people and, giving people, an inspirational vibe. So that to me is what defines really a spiritual humanitarian person. So with all that being said, I think that with everything that you've gone through and you're continuing to struggle with and have these issues, I really believe, even more so, I dare to say, I know that you have this capacity to really get deep down into that. What is that real person, who you really are, and rekindle that. And that could be the source. Like, there's like everything, Uncle Bruce, the psyche stuff, you're into all of the cool shit that I consider to be cool. Like, that we're living in a hologram of consciousness, that nothing, this is all energy, right? So like, and it's all beliefs, but it's like, on the other hand, it's like, I'm dealing with all this bullshit. It's like, why am I dealing with all this bullshit? And I also know that like, none of this fucking matters.
Right.
So and you know what? No one can tell you how to come to that conclusion or find that for you. No one can find it for you. There are going to be teachers. There's going to be guides. There's going to be all sorts of experiences that will get you to think about it and learn about it for yourself. But no one's going to really be able to do it for you. I just know that on some level, I know that you are going to find that place within yourself and you're going to have this great aha moment. There's no reason that you can't, because there are people, as you know, that have had extremely traumatic lives and injuries, brain injuries. Dr. Eben Alexander, a guy who had brain cancer, his brain turned to mush, a brain surgeon, This book, for anyone listening, is called Proof of Heaven. Incredible story. I highly recommend it. But this is a guy who literally his whole medical training was about how the brain works and biology works and physiology and neurology and all this stuff. And then he gets brain cancer. And it's like no matter what the doctors tell him, he is a doctor. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm fucked now. But then when he has this death experience where his brain is literally mush, he has this out of body experience and has this greater transcendent reality where it's like he realizes that he is not his body. He is not his programming. He is not even his identity as Dr. Evan Alexander. He's something much more than that. And then somehow he woke up and all the doctors around him were just like shocked, as they would be or should be, that this even happened. His brain literally healed against all medical advice, all the medical standards. So he had a spiritual experience. It changed his life and no one could have had that for him, but he had it in his own way. And I think maybe like all of this stuff that you've been experiencing, the things that you've gone through in your life, it's like, wow, like what a fucking journey. You're getting deeper and deeper into like what the core of Kortney Olson is all about. And like what is operating and making Kortney Olson a thing. So I have a lot of confidence in you that you're going to be able to do this. You have my support and you've got tons of supportive people around you.
Totally.
But I think
Thank you for that.
A big part of it is the letting go,
Yeah, that part. And I think next week, I haven't talked about this publicly yet, but I'm doing a psilocybin journey, as you know, and which scares the shit out of me because I'm like to be in control. And my drugs of choice were methamphetamine and narcotics and drinking, even though you're pretty out of control.
Not like on a mushroom trip, though.
Yeah.
They're a little different.
Yeah. So it's, that thought of being out of control, but being with a professional, because being in recovery, it's kind of a divided, everybody's got a different opinion on it. Like I've talked to my sponsor about it and she's like, this is a one-time thing, right? I'm like, yes. And I've had, another sponsor that works with plant medicine on a regular basis. And then I asked an older sponsor about it and she was like, are you fucking serious? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So everybody's got different opinions on it, but kind of like with the vaccine, right? It's
yeah.
Like I've got a best friend who's like, you got to stop calling it a bioweapon. I'm like,
well, I also want to add when it comes to psychedelics and for anyone listening right now, it's definitely the fact that you're going to be doing this with a trained professional is extremely important, especially when you're going into it for in the degree that you're going into it for healing and for a very sincere purpose. I mean, it's not, they're very unpredictable. Like the experiences can be very unpredictable. And if you do it alone or if you're have the dosage wrong, like all of these things, like you could go fucking nuts, it could be the complete opposite effect. So it's as opposed to like something like uppers or downers,
right?
These all arounders are not at all in the same world where, even though you do get out of control with those, at least you can anticipate I'm going up or I'm going down.
Right.
And this one, it's just like, I'm going in and out and all, like there is no up or down in that world.
Right.
Like there is no past, present, future, none of that shit. So you're like in the complete reset zone. The great reset, but a good one, a good
great reset.
I got to find some better buttons behind those two, but I think, number one, I think that a lot of the things, as we've talked about even before the podcast, it's like a lot of it is just simply environmental circumstance stuff that's at this very given moment is not something that you can literally just like influence or change or control. It's like having to move, having to deal with business, the state of the world, like all of these things. And it's just like, and it's a very limited time window. So it's like, what are you going to do? And that sucks.
I know it's such a trip. Like everything is happening at this point, like moving out of my place here in Vegas. And shout out to Shine a Light. Like they're the most amazing organization that they really do the work. And
who's Shine a Light now?
Shine a Light is the organization that goes into the tunnels and has, organizes all the packs and, because you got to go down there consistently to build trust with addicts,
For sure.
And amazing org if you all get the time to look them up and give them some support. But between leaving my community here and then going back to Australia and moving our warehouse, that in and on its own will be enough to make you want to blow your head off.
Absolutely.
I've done it like 4 times. It's insane. We have so many SKUs in our business, but and then launching another business to sustain the clothing business because, trading in physical retail and apparel is, it's, like I said, it's absolute disaster. So to launch a new business where I've got digital products, you know, and teaching women how to choke men out with their legs and make a very substantial income and travel the world.
Talk about female empowerment.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know. That sounds like the most substantial female empowerment business model. Like,
yeah, it is. I need to get really excited about it. Like I was on tour for a month doing it and traveled. This time I went from, I was in the East Coast and then London, Germany, down to Zurich, and then back up through Germany, and then over Toronto and Canada, and then Boston, and it was just incredible, and was very excited. And then of course been out of it for a couple of weeks, so I'm like now in the weeds of, oh god, building all the funnels and fucking shooting the content and getting the course organized. It's like, but then and then I get stressed out, and then I'm like, oh yeah, World War III is around the corner, who fucking cares,
right? So
you've got like this exciting new opportunity that's huge and abundant, and thinking like, oh, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And if anybody's out there listening and struggling, I always come back to that phrase. Like this last time around, because I've attempted to get clean and sober since I was 21, and I'll be 42 in November, and I've got 13 consecutive years. And this last time around, when I was hooked on Oxycontin, and I went to NA, and I had a sponsor there that said, you are exactly where you're meant to be at every given moment. And that really hit me hard and has stuck with me. So anytime I'm like, oh, fuck, blah, 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 and all this and that, and it's like, no, bitch, your soul signed up for all this shit before it came down.
Yep.
These are all experiences that you opted in for. Like you'd said something really profound when we were driving out to see that golf pro about how, somebody in this lifetime could seem like your biggest enemy, but yet before you came down, you made soul contracts, and they're your biggest fans and love you the most, but are like, okay, well, in this lifetime, I'm gonna fucking stab you in the back and fuck your
like
husband.
A coach, like a coach in a training session who's gonna be like, get up off your ass.
Yeah,
like I don't fuck you, I'm dying over here.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like,
it's a catalyst, right? And it's an experience.
Yeah.
So I always come back to saying like, okay, well, you are exactly where you're meant to be, and this is all part of what you signed up for. But then I'm like, but what's the point? But
but goddamn,
yeah,
it's like that's because again, another thing about like the new age spiritual world, that annoys me is this whole idea of like it's only positivity. It's like, don't think negative. Like, oh, I don't want to say that because I don't want to put that out into the field. I'm only going to say nice things. Or like, it's like, that's just a load of crap, like, cause life is not just all positive, and we need to accept the uncomfortable shit that happens. So even where we can intellectually say that exact thing, that like, yes, we like all of this is supposed to be this is exactly the way it's supposed to be. At the same time, we're like, yeah, but I'm still fucking in this bullshit storm. It's like sitting in quicksand. Like when you're going through quicksand and you're sinking, ironically, the best way to get out of the quicksand maybe not the best way to get out of the quicksand, but first thing you got to do is calm down, relax. So the more you struggle in the quicksand, the quicker you sink, right? So you got to relax. Okay, relax. And then you stop sinking. You're like, okay, good. I'm relaxed. But then there's a moment where you're like, shit, I'm still stuck in quicksand right now.
Shit, we're still sending billions of dollars to Ukraine.
That motherfucking Ukraine, most corrupt country on earth. Everyone on earth has known this up until 2022. The most corrupt country on earth. Most people don't even know, like, just the history of Ukraine, and are just so, like, it bothers me so much that people are falling for this just after we had the whole, like, we know what every single war has been for the United States. It's been a complete, based on lie after lie after lie.
Yeah, Project New American Century. If you've never watched that documentary, I highly recommend you do.
Yep. It's the neocons. It's the war machine, the military industrial complex, and it goes even deeper than that. And that's a whole podcast onto itself. We'll have to get into sometime, but it's, like, again, back to the center space here. It's like, okay, just gotta keep breathing. Just got to keep breathing, and breathing is the best and most important thing that we can do to get a hold of ourselves.
That before we go to bed tonight.
Some conscious breath work.
Instead of watching like Middle Earth.
Yeah, Hollow Earth. Fucking scary stories. Yeah. I want to give a shout out to that guy, Mr. Mythos on YouTube. Definitely check this motherfucker out. He is the coolest He has the coolest way of telling stories. He has such deep research into all sorts of mythological things, especially his videos on the Hollow Earth. And, you know, you got to pick and choose your conspiracy theories. If you're a flat earther out there, fine, but just, you know, maybe have some fun and entertain the idea that maybe it's not flat, maybe it's hollow. Either way, both of those are not the traditional perspective on the earth. And I encourage anybody out there to just think outside, whatever the fuck you learned in school. You're probably deluding yourself thinking that that's really what's going on. We are just being programmed. We are not being taught to think critically, and not even just think critically, but to have an imagination. Right. And imagination is the most important thing that gives us rise or gives us power. And that comes back to our breath, because the universe, I was talking about this on the podcast with Uncle Bruce yesterday. He brought up the Big Bang. You know, the Big Bang is like supposedly when the universe began. They can track it back to a single point. That implies there was a beginning, which maybe implies there's an end. That's the same concept of like we talked about, right. Beginning and this, that, one side versus the other. There was nothing before the beginning, and then there's nothing going to be after our end. And we're stuck in this fucking prison of like the moment of what? I don't know. Random. Who gives a fuck? That's where we're at. But I like to think of it back to the breath. It's not the Big Bang. It's the big breath. It's that there seems to be, and we can't prove this right now, but I believe it, is that the universe is a fractal representation of what the human being is a fractal representation of what the solar system is, of anything. You could look at anything. There's that saying, everything is everything. Everything is everything. And if you look at the universe as it's breathing, the beginning is not the beginning. It's also the end. And there isn't really no beginning or end. It's all about just the concept of breathing. Think about when you're stressed, you know, like you stop breathing. You know, that's kind of like, I feel like where we're at as a culture right now. We're just stressed and we're not breathing. It's like, come on, breathe, just fucking breathe.
Yeah.
And if we just stop, like with all the shit that like is literally out of our control right now, whether it's war in Ukraine, World War III, COVID lockdowns, fucking like economy bullshit, fill in the blank. Like no matter what it is, we could still just stop and breathe. And it's not just breathing like a machine, like get the air into the lungs. No, it's about conscious breath. It's about breathing with an intention, you know, instead of just meditating, like it's all about like the mind and like feeling you're into nothing or whatever. It's just like, no, don't even think about, don't worry about that. Just breathe. And as you breathe, just breathe in just joy. Like choose an emotion and breathe that emotion in and just do it for a little while. And then you start to realize how easily it calms down. And I want to add this too. It's like exercise. I know that if I don't exercise nearly as much as I should, and I'm going to be, thank you for fucking motivating me to do that, by the way. But I know for a fact that anytime I get anxious, which happens all the time, like I've had all fucking chronic anxiety a lot. Like I went to a psychiatrist one time and I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety. They wanted to put me on medication and they were like, it's like, okay. Cause it was kind of like you. I was like, I need to know the fucking answer to this. And they're like, oh, you have chronic anxiety. I'm like, oh, good. Finally, I know what it is now. I'm like, what do I do about it? And they said, well, you could take these drugs. Like, okay, what's the drug going to do? And they're like, oh, well, it's going to help reduce your anxiety. And I'm like, are there any side effects? I had to ask them, are there any side effects? Like, oh yeah. And she listed off like a whole bunch of them. And one of them was fucking death. I'm like, I'm good. I don't think I want to take that. So anyway, the point is that
I've been like, will it get me high?
Yeah. Will it get me high at least? Like, will I be high before I die? But I think, you know, I know anytime that I've exercised, just go out for a fucking run or even a brisk walk.
Changes your state.
Yeah. It just reduces your anxiety naturally.
Speaking of which, we need to go to the gym.
Yes, we do.
Very soon.
Yes, we do. We're coming up on the hour mark. So I want to ask you one final question.
Who is God?
Yeah. Or not even who is God. More, what does God mean to you? God means so many different things to so many different people. Yeah. What does God mean to you?
That's a great question to end on. I had a sponsor that told me one time, you know, God is such a loaded word. And you hear it and all these different things come up. And it's like, yeah, that's a good point. Whereas in recovery, you know, it's based off of spirituality and not religion. Because a lot of times people come into the rooms and they see the steps and there's God in there. And they're like, don't hit me with this backdoor Jesus bullshit or whatever. Because they had, you know, bad upbringing in the church. Or
I think that's the name of a gay bar somewhere. Backdoor Jesus.
So
wait, yeah, where is it? Backdoor Jesus. Wait, no, is it what? Backdoor Jesus? There it is. Oh, working on it.
Love it.
Yeah, but as you were saying.
Yeah, so as you were, that you know, we say, oh, it's a power greater than yourself. And whether that's, you know, good orderly direction or dog spelt backwards, you know, the definition of unconditional love, right? You could kick a dog, you could swear at it, not feed it, and it's still, for the most part, most dogs are going to love you unconditionally. And so the idea that, you know, it's something outside of yourself, and whether some people use like the connectivity of the group, you know, this universal force field, the ether, you know, there's so many different words you could put to it. And to me, that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of this journey, this psilocybin journey, is a deeper spiritual connection, because I've, you know, had experiences with Jesus Christ and was baptized when I was 15 years old. And that kind of all goes out the window when you smoke meth, right?
Ironically, I've seen a lot of fucking like Jesus and tweakers go together like really well.
They do actually. Now you mention it,
kind of scary. Actually.
Yeah, fuck. But for me, you know, this might sound kind of funny, but I kind of look to it as sometimes when I pray, or I'm just like, you know, asking for guidance from the universe, I imagine it's like a race of aliens, or, you know, some kind of just energetic field, like not one supreme being, or, you know, I'm definitely open to the fact that it could be, you know, guiding from who knows, or I have fucking no idea.
I think that's like the greatest answer. All of that ending up with fucking who knows.
Yeah.
But you know, you tied in a lot of things that I completely agree with, that there's this universal force, this, you know, mentioned love, unconditional love. Imagine like the sun, you know, the sun doesn't discriminate against like anything on earth. It light shines on everything. You know, it'll help anything grow. And then also, depending on the state of things, the sun can fucking burn you.
Right.
So like God has this force that just is unconditional love, and it's everywhere, it's everything, and it's within everybody. I think something that a lot of people we're all as a society, as a civilization, as a human race, dealing with this traumatic memory of this concept of like the big guy in the sky, you know, the man, like I pray to him, the Lord, the Father, like those terms are actually like feudal terms, like the Lord, like the Lord of what? The Lord of the land, like my landlord, like who I have to pay taxes, and like that, like Uncle Sam is the
right.
Uncle Sam is God. Like there's like a lot of these old white guy images of the man in the clouds. And I think that's a whole story on itself. But I think it's like more people than not have a sense that God is what you described and what we really believe it is. But nonetheless, I think that there is a smoke screen that keeps us from, you know, recognizing what God really is. It's like God is everywhere, you know, which is back to what like you know, how a lot of religions can be completely hypocritical. You know, killing in the name of Jesus kind of behavior type of shit. It's like, hey, like if we recognize that God was in me and God was in you and God was in this chair and in this van and out in Vegas everywhere. It's like, imagine if we knew that, if we truly understood that and acted that way, how much better things would be. You know, and it doesn't have to be any secular bullshit. It doesn't have to be any like, well, my God's better than your God. And that's like, okay, well, why are there different gods? It's like, it's so deeply connected to our history, and we don't know our history that well.
Yeah.
Which means we don't really know ourselves that well. So I just want to say thank you for being on this journey to get to know yourself better and to really be honest with yourself and learn from yourself and understand that, yes, sometimes we do suffer, even though we realize we shouldn't own that suffering. It's like, I don't want to own that concept of suffering, but I do fucking suffer. Like that I commend you for. And I hope all of our listeners out there can really find you and meet you one day and get to know your story better and just be there for you in the same way that you're there for them. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, is there any place for our listeners that they can get a hold of you if they want to contact you or find your website or any fucking like what's your Instagrams or whatever the fuck?
Yeah, whatever the fuck is at. You just look at my name, Kortney Olson. You'll find all sorts of random shit on there. But you know, Instagram, my website's just KortneyOlson.com, which will be relaunching in about a month's time or so. So yeah, you can always find me on the interwebs.
Well, stay tuned, everybody. Kortney, I'm so happy to be here with you and to have this conversation with you. So let's continue to have a good time. And let's
gym.
head to the gym.
That's
all
what's
right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We really look forward to seeing you next time on the Video Shaman podcast. We will see you next time.
That supports the view that we have lost a whole civilization from our historical record. We are a species with amnesia.
So we're going to have to forgive universally and move to this creative moment as a species.
We, humans, are creating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous